Hello, race fans. Peter Mackay here, welcoming you to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for the Apex Racing League special event, Petit Le Mans 2020. Joining me in the commentary box today for this 90-minute race is Wei Han Chan, all the way over in Singapore. Wei Han, how are you feeling heading into this one today?
Oh yes, hi Peter. Yes, feeling absolutely excited for whatever that's going to happen for the next 90 minutes because we were just here last week, in fact, for the coverage of the BMW 120, and we're here again at the same track, the same exciting track. But this time, of course, we've got many more different GTE cars as well as this interesting looking LMP2 car.
We do indeed. Lots of new stuff for iRacing fans. This in the last couple of weeks, of course, most notably, this car on screen right now, the Dallara LMP2 car, a closed cockpit LMP2 car, more modern version of the outgoing but much loved Acura HPD ARX01, to give it its full name. And also, I have to say, the highlight for me, as you know, Wehan, the Corvette, the brand new Corvette C8R is going to join us here. It now joins us in iRacing and here today for this, a warm-up event for next week's iRacing Petit Le Mans, which of course mirrors the real-world event, which will happen in a few weeks' time. And I'm not bitter at all, but I did have my tickets booked to go to Petit Le Mans this year, but unfortunately due to the travel restrictions, I'm not going to make it. But this is a very close second to commentate on this Petit Le Mans race with you, Wehan.
Oh yeah, of course, it is unfortunate that we have missed so many nice racing events in real life. But I think with the presence of sim racing, it has kind of filled some of that void that's been left out. And I think these racing events have kind of done quite a good job in doing so. Now, of course, we do have Scott Newton. He is also one of us here on Apex Racing TV. So he has set a lap time of 1:09.619 for qualifying. So we're just going to look around some of the other cars who have set their qualifying lap times. So you will see quite a big gap between the LMP2 cars versus the GTEs, but then not exactly a sizable gap between the GTEs and the GT3s. Now, of course, if we do analyze the way this circuit layout is like, you'll find that the first part of this track, the first sector at least, is it consists of so many corners that kind of being compressed into one section. Then after that, you'll have an extremely fast and open section with just a handful of corners that kind of round out your whole lap.
It is indeed, yes. This Road Atlanta layout originally opened in 1970, and the whole layout of the track is basically cut into the local landscape. In fact, the local landscape cut from red Georgia clay, actually, where the track was built. And the first race ever held here at Road Atlanta was a Can-Am race won by Tony Dean in a Porsche 908. So it's got some history, but most notably was in 1998 when the Petit Le Mans launched the American Le Mans series for the very first time. And Petit Le Mans, the 10-hour classic, still runs to this very day. So the drivers are out at the moment in their solo qualifying session, so they all have the track to themselves. They're effectively simultaneously setting their qualifying laps in their own session. They have 4 laps to go out and set at the moment. Gregory leading in LMP2 with a 1 minute 9.552. And we will also have the GTE and GT3 runners setting their times as well. We're looking at Matthias Beer on screen right now, one of our runners in the Apex Racing Academy GT4 series at the wheel of a BMW, but he switched Munich mark for Maranello today and looking pretty strong so far with a 1 minute 16.809 there.
Most certainly. So, even within this compact grid, we do have quite a good variety of cars. So, I think with regards to how these cars would have to be set up for this track, they will have to factor in things like elevation changes and also the huge curbs, the rather tall curbs that are present across some of the corners, which the drivers do have to compensate for in their setups. And also, this final corner where it's a downhill right-hander, it just makes for a unique strategy. So as these guys are going to move towards gridding, it's going to be 90 minutes of racing, as we just mentioned. A total of 20 drivers on the grid, and they are in the process of being gridded up.
So let's see how they line up then for this Petit Le Mans 2020 here in the Apex Racing League. On pole position is Gregory in the number 13 Dallara, edging out Scott Newton for pole position by 66 thousandths of a second. Very close indeed. Toby Ward and Derek Holland will start from the second row of the grid, followed by Jose Boizan and Craig Mason. First in the GTE class is Daniel Lee, one of our Apex Racing League GT Challenge drivers in his BMW M8, and he will line up alongside the BMW of Ethan Bass. Ike Weinberg and Dean Powell will start 9th and 10th, with Nicholas Danella and Matthias Beer in the 488 Ferrari. 13th will be Marco Tolman alongside Andrew Hewson. Tom Bingham will start from 15th alongside Tyler Hervias. Brandon Werner will start from 17th. Bradley Hulst will start 18th. Nicholas Housen 19th. And finally, Klaus Nielsen in the number 404 middle of the pack racing machine will start in 20th place. So our drivers beginning to line up behind the iRacing.com Porsche pace car, where they will take one full parade lap of Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and ready to go for 90 minutes of racing. Expecting our drivers just to need to stop once for the GT runners. For the LMP2s, it might be a bit of a squeeze, but hopefully they'll be able to, they might well need a second stop, but we'll see how that progresses over the course of the race. And our pace car pulls away, and we're ready to go racing here at Road Atlanta.
So as the drivers set off, you can just see that some of them are just beginning to weave, and of course with I guess some of the more recent iRacing tire models, it does help to get some heat into your tires before commencing on a fast lap, which is exactly what they're going to do in a moment's time. So of course we've got just 6 LMP2 cars, and you would definitely expect a gap to be formed by the drivers themselves along as they take on the pace lap. This is kind of to set a buffer between the prototype and GT classes. So I think with a track like this, Peter, Road Atlanta is short, and what I like to characterize this track as is it's kind of like a rinse and repeat circuit where the corners just kind of come over and over and over again. Especially because these laps are relatively short, and it does kind of give drivers not exactly much breathing room.
No, it doesn't. You're absolutely right. And the one thing to really be careful of here, and it definitely shows in real-world racing at Road Atlanta as well, is managing the traffic. Of course, this is pure multi-class sports car racing. We have very, very fast LMP2 prototype machines with 600 horsepower. We have the GTE cars and we have the GT3, and they're all separated by quite a lot in lap time. But as you rightly said, Wehan, particularly the S's from turn 3 down to turn 5 is all one line, and even for the prototypes, if they get behind a GT car, well, if they're going to try and make a pass there, it is incredibly risky, and we see a lot of drivers in both in real world and sim hitting problems there. So patience is going to be key in this 90-minute race, and it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers handle this. Now, for you, as you mentioned as well, we had the drivers, of course, weaving back and forth right now, trying to generate a little bit of tire temperature in those LMP2 machines, but also the new Dallara LMP2 car to iRacing. These cars have carbon brakes as well and no ABS, and the braking power is immense in these cars, but you do need the heat in the brakes. When the brakes are cold, well, there isn't very much braking performance at all. So on the pace lap, they'll be trying to get that temperature into the brakes, but Ben Gregory is going to lead us away for this opening 90-minute race here in the Apex Racing League Petit Le Mans. We are go at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and Ben Gregory gets an excellent start. We've got one of the GT cars off, and huge accident. One of the BMWs catching another BMW, but Ben Gregory gets away cleanly in LMP2, and we've got an absolute car park here on the front straight. One of the Jägermeister cars there. Oh, what a pity. It looks like the 96 Corvette has got away cleanly as well. I think that's Denler. So, what an eventful start, Wehan.
Oh, that was quite chaotic to say the least, especially for the second half of the grid. But as far as the rest of the grid is concerned, at least for the LMP2 and most of the GTEs, they've made it through the race start quite unscathed. So Benjamin Gregory, your race leader, with Scott Newton second and Derek Holland in third. So of course, Gregory is already pulling quite a bit of a sizable gap ahead of the cars behind him. So, he comes upon the braking zone now with these LMP2 cars, going down this downhill braking zone. It is quite easy to lock your car up. So drivers have to be especially careful with this lightweight car. So it goes thundering down this downhill right-hander. This is one of the more difficult corners to overtake. You will see some moves take place when cars are closed off later on, and this is one lap done.
Yep, we are indeed, and it looks like all of the P2 runners have got through very cleanly, but Ben Gregory, he is absolutely pulling away at the front of the field. And I was watching Ben in practice. He's done 51 laps in practice, so he's been busy in the free practice time, and most of his laps in the 1 minute 10 bracket, 31 minute 10 laps in practice. So he's got really, really strong, consistent race pace. So Scott Newton is going to have his work cut out to keep up here, as we're looking at Daniel Lee, our leader in GTE in the dominant BMW M8. But look at that, we've got two Corvettes chasing it down. And Wei-Han, I hope I'm not sounding too biased, because I'm finding it very difficult. You know how much of a Corvette fan I am, but I shall try to remain impartial today.
Yeah, well, wouldn't blame you for it, because, especially with this rendition of the Corvette GT, it is such fun to drive in the iRacing service, at least. I think they've done quite a good job in replicating how the Corvette handles, especially with the mid-engine as opposed to the front engine, as you would have with the previous generation of cars. It is quite fun to handle this one. So we're now down to the GT3 class with Tyler, who leads this field of 5 GT3 cars. He is in the Audi, and so is the car behind him, and so is the third one is a Mercedes. So you can kind of see the preferences with the GT3 cars in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. The Audi is probably the most, the most kind of knife-edge car. It's quite tricky on the limit, but has probably the best outright lap pace, it seems, at the moment. I personally like the Ferrari because it's nice and safe and understeer, so it's okay. but this Audi R8 is an absolute beast of a machine. 5.2 litre V10 naturally aspirated motor, and this car has been so successful in competition. It was the winner of Petit Le Mans in the real world in 2017 and 2014 in its class, so it's been very, very popular in competition. It's also won all of the major endurance races like Nürburgring, Bathurst, and those kinds of races, Spa as well. So been very, very popular in competition. But leading 1-2 at the moment with Hervias and Werner, closely followed by the Mercedes of Hulls.
So you can just listen to the signature Audi R8 V10 engine, because it does share similar engine with the Lamborghini Huracan. And of course, this is, it's one of those cars that you can kind of tell from far away. Before you even see it, you can hear it. So both teammates taking it hard through the final chicane. We're back with the race leader. This is Benjamin Gregory, who is just a second ahead of Scott Newton. Of course, Scott has also supported Gregory in forming a breakaway from Derek Holland, who's in third, and approximately 3 seconds behind them. So setting good pace does these drivers. Their last time by for Benjamin Gregory was 1:10.64, which is a blistering lap time. We're down with Daniel Lee, who is the leader of the GTE class. We've seen some incidents taken place earlier on, and we're just kind of going around looking for some action to happen, because this is going to be a 90-minute race. Drivers they would probably tend to be less likely to kind of push their cars over the edge.
Yeah, this is all about running those consistent lap times and eradicating those mistakes. You mentioned the BMW 120 last weekend here at Road Atlanta, Wei-Han, and from what I saw from that race, it was just all about keeping your car on the road and trying to avoid those incidents, because at that level particularly, you really are punished by the mistakes. But so far so good for Ben Gregory and Scott Newton, but these LMP2 cars will need to stop twice. I've just checked my fuel numbers, and they will need to stop twice during this race. The GT cars of both types will only need to stop once during this race. So it'll be interesting to see when the drivers decide to do that. Now, for those that were involved in the early incidents as well, they also have, all the drivers have access to one iRacing fast repair during this 90-minute race. So what that means is they can either go into pit lane and take an instant repair back to 100%, or if they need to, they can take an electronic tow back to pit lane to receive that instant repair. So if you do get involved in an incident early, you do have that up your sleeve as well, but it's good to have it. Now, interestingly, looks like Ben Gregory's maybe made a little bit of a mistake here. Scott Newton right now on the back of him, and certainly now in draft range. And from what I've seen, Weyhan, these LMP2 cars, you can really get a good draft behind them.
Yeah, also the fact that these cars are in fact very much aerodynamic reliant. It relies so much more on aerodynamics compared to the GT cars. So any aerodynamic advantage that you can get will bring you lots of benefit, especially with these cars that kind of you can kind of cut a lot of downforce for these cars. So this is exactly what Scott Newton is doing now. He's sitting in the slipstream, trying to obtain the best position possible to obtain a good slipstream from Benjamin Gregory. But of course, Benjamin would also try to take a more defensive line to try to shake Scott off for as best as he can. And as they go upon the braking zone, this is where, especially if you do have a lot of slipstream effect on you, you have to be a little bit careful on braking in order not to kind of plow to the car in front, because you do kind of lose some of that downforce traction as you go into the corner.
That's a very good point. They call it the Bermuda Triangle aero wash is what some drivers call it, where you just lose, like you say, that it just cheats the aerodynamics. Now here we go. Oh, I have to say, I just had to breathe in slightly. I'm sure Scott Newton did as well. That is incredibly close there to slip the LMP2 car through that gap with the GT car. It doesn't always come off well, but these two leaders doing very, very well. Now, interesting, Scott Newton does have a little bit more pace, but outright pace. He was fastest in practice, didn't do as many laps in practice, but here he goes. He seems to have got the run here on Gregory. He's going to have a look. Goes to the outside line, heading down towards turn 10A and turn 10B, and Scott Newton gets the move done. Gregory tucks in behind him, has a look back again. Will he have a look up the inside? No. Now, this is the interesting thing, Weyhan, because, of course, if you're... a little mistake on the exit from Scott Newton, and Gregory goes up the inside. Can he get the move done into the final corner? He does. He retakes the position. But what I was going to say, Weyhan, was that if you can follow the car in front, you do have the option to save a little bit of fuel, because the car in front is effectively punching a big hole in the air to lower your air resistance, and therefore you can run a little bit more efficiently and save a bit of time in pit lane, but doesn't always work out.
I think for a race like this, it could work out, to a certain degree. Now, of course, you've also got some lap traffic to take advantage of, especially if you come up upon a GTE car that has quite a bit of straight line speed for your LMP car to match up with. This does kind of hark back to the days of the older iRacing Proto GT series, where you had the old HPD versus the GT1 cars that kind of shared around a similar top speed. As we're just saying that this is Scott Newton. He's going to go alongside Benjamin Gregory to take once more the race lead, and he's just going to do so as he comes up breaking down into the chicane. Now, I was just trying to iterate that back in the day, that positions, these guys, they're just kind of switching around, trying to push hard, and while diving right into the lap traffic, a pile of lap traffic right now. So Scott is trying to use this to his advantage as he tries to set a bit of a boundary with a bit of a margin with Benjamin Gregory, with the use of some GT cars in between. So sometimes if you are fast enough, you're able to find your way ahead of those lap GT cars to hide in front of them. This is how you can kind of protect yourself from the car behind of you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that was an amazing move there from Scott Newton. Pretty high risk there, cutting through the GT3 traffic, but he has been rewarded with a big gap back to Benjamin Gregory, and now the rest of the P2 runners have to get their way through the GT3 traffic. So we're only 10 minutes into this race, and already the P2 cars coming round to the GT3 machines, and it won't be long before they have to go and get through all the GTE runners. And as you said, The GTE runners, well, in a straight line it won't be a problem for the P2 cars, but in the corners, the slower corners, the GTE machines like the BMW M8 and the Corvette are very, very good in the low-speed corners. So that is sometimes where the LMP2 cars really do get held up.
Yeah, especially with the kind of mechanical grip that these cars present, it is quite immense, and it does very well to kind of give especially some of the GTE cars the edge. So we're back with Scott Newton once more. He's taking the S's, and you can just see that even with this LMP2 car, he can afford to take a little bit of those curbs. Of course, you don't mount your car over those curbs as you would with the GT cars, but as long as you try to pick the line out, the path of least resistance down those S's, that's how you can get your car around.
Yeah, Scott Gregory, a 1 minute 10.6 last time around. That's very impressive on full race fuel, especially after having to work his way through a little bit of lap traffic leading onto this lap, and he's got a good gap back to Benjamin Gregory right now. So let's see what Benjamin Gregory has to say. But remember, Benjamin Gregory does have incredibly consistent race pace. He can stick to a lap time very well. Oh, we've got one of the Audis spin around. That's Hausen, I think. I think it is, yeah, the number 51 of Hausen. Nicholas Hausen, it is. Yep, one of our Antipodean drivers. Oh, just loses the rear on the inside. And Wehan, that's a very classic Audi incident. It's got a lot of weight in the middle of the car, and when you get the weight transfer going, it can sometimes be very, very twitchy.
Yeah, well, I think one of the I guess the pitfalls with handling a car like the Audi is that you do get a lot of versatility. You can throw the car around, but if you're just not so careful, if you go over the edge, the car does kind of spin on you. And I think it would be quite similar with the LMP2 as well, and to an extent even the Corvette, because the Corvette, this C8 Corvette is a mid-engine car, so some of that you could see happening. So Scott Newton, you can see that he's taking good advantage of the slipstream that the big GTE cars offer, and you can also see the difference in the straight line speed of these two car classes, and how much it does to allow the LMP2s to make the overtaking moves.
Yeah, the LMP2s, they've got more horsepower and quite a lot less weight, about 600 horsepower from the 4.2 litre naturally aspirated Gibson V8 made in Derbyshire in the United Kingdom. And yeah, so it's it just seems to be we've got a little bit of an issue here with our production feed. That might well be on my end. But yes, 600 horsepower and only 930 kilograms. So compared to the GT car, which is about 500 horsepower and about 1,200 kilograms, the difference is massive as well. And also the aerodynamics of the LMP2 car and the high speeds, it's a seriously fast car, the LMP2 machine. It makes you wonder just how scary those LMP1 hybrids are.
It's probably a blessing in disguise that we don't have the LMP1s present here, or it's going to be quite a lot on the plate for some of these drivers, especially when you have so many different car classes going around. So right now it's just 3 classes, and they seem to be working very well with one another. Now, of course, this is Scott Newton. He has a 7/10 of a second advantage ahead of Benjamin Gregory. That does kind of go around a bit. And he's now creeping upon yet another GT class car. That is the another Corvette, which he's made his way around. And you can just see that the way he takes that, especially this turn one. He's got a good entry, got a good exit as well. Of course, with the cars like this LMP2, you can't take too much of the curves.
Yeah, beautifully smooth there as well. You also notice him just lifting and coasting slightly. He's just not over revving too much, just making sure he's not using up too much fuel, thinking about the long run. And on the last lap where he had a clear run, he was 0.7 of a second quicker than Gregory. But that last time around, well, the traffic giveth and the traffic taketh away. He lost 1.8 seconds to Gregory just on that last lap, and that was all to do with where he caught the traffic. So that gap looks like it's just going to yo-yo back and forward all day long between Scott Newton and Benjamin Gregory. Brilliant battle so far. Scott Newton goes past one of the C8R Corvettes, a car which has just been debuted just this year. In fact, I was there for its debut. We had at the Rolex 24 at Daytona when the car just missed out on a podium, but since then Well, it's been absolutely dominant in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship with wins at the WeatherTech 240 at Daytona, the race at Sebring, Road America, and VIR, and the number 3 car leading the championship quite convincingly right now.
Oh, what a great experience it must have been, to go to the Daytona 24 in real life. I think right now this is Nicholas Danella. He's in his Corvette, a red Corvette, something that you might not see in real life, I would imagine, because the Corvette C8 in real life is most of the time is either yellow or in the gray paint scheme as with the official paint schemes. So this is him. He's in second. He's currently sitting at 1.1 seconds behind Daniel Lee, the class leader. So he is also fighting another battle. So you can see that even within this this compact field of cars, you have quite a lot of battles taking place. Especially 3 battles for the lead. From each class. So this is Buisan, who's third or rather fourth in the LMP2 class. He's set behind Derek Holland, and both of these drivers, these form the second breakaway of the LMP2 class. Of course, Scott Newton and Benjamin Gregory have broken ahead by 8 seconds.
Yeah, funny enough, you talk about red Corvettes, you don't see them very often, but you hear about them quite a lot. Prince, remember the old Prince song? Little Red Corvette?
Wow.
Have you not heard that one? You need to Google that one. Get that one on your queued up on your Spotify, Weihan. I'll not sing it. Okay, maybe just one bar. Little red Corvette. Doo, doo,
wow.
Doo. That's all you're getting.
All right, I'll definitely check it out, man.
Yeah, that's all. We've lost all our viewers. Have turned off in disgust at that little rendition. This is close. Oh, this is very close. Now this is where it gets so bunched up there, coming out of turn 7. The most important corner on this Road Atlanta circuit, because that's where you need to get the power down and along the hugely long back straight. But the 2 P2 cars of Derek Holland and Buies trying to get through there, but they have just about, using all that horsepower, coming down into turn 10A and 10B. Oh, Holland just about defends it. Oh, he's spun and he's in the gravel. Oh dear, dear, dear. That wasn't very polite at all.
Let's have a look at the replay of what exactly happened between these 2 cars. So this is breaking down into the final chicane. Both drivers still have a bit of a gap between them, but it would look like it is Holland who had his rear end a little loose, and he did reduce speed from there, but unfortunately the other LMP2 car kind of just came into contact with him, and that was enough to send him off.
A bit of a pity there for Derek Holland. Derek Holland very, very fast in a single-seater car. He was very strong in the Formula 3 series here in the Apex Racing League. Also, a bit of an announcement. We have a brand new league to enter here with Apex Racing. We have a Porsche Cup League coming up very, very soon. So check out Apex Racing Academy on our website, apexracing.com, for more details of that, with coaching from the one and only Kevin Ellis Jr., who will be racing in the Porsche Esports Super Cup right now.
Absolutely, best of luck to him as he races in that event at this point. This is Nicholas Danella, who has gone around to make, perhaps to think of... No, this is him in the Corvette, who had just been overtaken by Daniel Lee for the lead in the GTE class. So, right now it's very much a battle between the 2 GT cars, but it's come under a bit of being kind of had a spanner thrown into the works with the LMP2 making his way around these cars. So I think with multi-class racing also, one thing you have to deal with is lap traffic. At the same time, you've also got to deal with traffic of faster cars lapping you, and it can sometimes mess some of the rhythm up.
Absolutely, it's a huge challenge, both for the driver being passed and the driver having to make the passes. That how you handle that lap traffic is so important, and not so much. Well, also with the lap speed that you have, but also avoiding incidents. We see it so many times where, Derek Holland had another incident. We've got the 66 car off as well. The 66 of Toby Ward spinning. So, what a shame. What happened here? Let's have a look at the replay. So here is Ward. Appears to be on his own right now. And is he going to spin coming on the brakes into turn 7? Oh, he does, and just broadside across the circuit. And Daniel Lee has to go around there as well. And Derek Holland almost spins in sympathy there. So we've got two P2 cars. And, well, they don't have a very good turning circle, Weyhan. That wouldn't be very handy in Singapore.
Oh yeah, definitely. With the street circuit here, it's all tight corners. But of course, no, we don't really see the LMP2 racing on street circuits that much. They're mostly in the real racetracks, or rather the permanent racetracks like these. So I guess it's probably designed with that in mind. I guess. Now we're back with Scott Newton once again. He is leading, as he has been for some time now. He is a 1.2 seconds ahead of Benjamin Gregory. So remember that Gregory had led the race at various points earlier on. Now it is Scott Newton. So it's pretty much up front. It's pretty much been a battle between just these two drivers, as of course the next closest battle for the lead would be the other two LMP2 cars fighting further up. So this is now the battle for the GT3 lead. Once again, between the same two teammates from Parallax Racing, between Werner and Elba. And of course, they're coming under pressure from yet another LMP2 car trying to lap these guys.
Oh, now let's get a little replay here. Race leader Scott Newton just gets, that's a really big commitment corner there. Onto the brakes, change of direction, just a little bit slide wide, hits one of the cones, and that will just allow Benjamin Gregory to just give him a little bit of motivation, and even more so, get stuck behind a GT3 Audi. And look at this, Ben Gregory now is right in the draft, and he might be able to get a move done here. He's got a run, opening up that massive 4.2 litre, 600 horsepower Gibson V8. He jinks to the side, goes to the outside line. Scott takes the defensive line. They go hard on the brakes. Who's going to get in here first? 10A and turn 10B. Looks like Gregory might have it, but Scott's not going to let him have it at all. Coming through to the final corner they go, side by side, and Benjamin Gregory gets the move done. So, a little bit of a chink in the armour for Scott Newton there, and Benjamin Gregory takes the lead of this motor race.
So we've come to the 22-minute mark of the race, so we are approaching the 1/3 mark. So remember that with these LMP2 cars, they do have they would probably require two pit stops, as you just mentioned, Peter. And right now, this is a move by what would appear to be Derek Holland, between Derek Holland and Toby Ward. So Ward has moved up one position to P4. And of course, we're now back with Benjamin Gregory once again, and we'll see how well he's able to fend off his race lead from Scott Newton, because these guys have been switching positions pretty much for most of the first 20 minutes of this race.
Yeah, I would expect in about 10 laps time or so, so in about maybe 12 minutes or so, we will see these guys have to come into pit lane. Although they have large fuel tanks in these LMP2 machine, that big thirsty Gibson V8 goes through the fuel at a huge rate of knots, about 2.5 litres per lap. So it's a pretty thirsty beast is this car, as we're going through onto lap 21 of the race, 24 minutes down of a total of 90, and we're coming into the back of GT3 traffic once more. And I wonder if that, for our LMP2 runners, if that will play into their thinking when they decide to take their first pit stop, depending on where the traffic is.
So of course we could see some leapfrogging take place between the classes as well. When you do have the LMP2 cars with two expected pit stops, and some of the other cars with just one. What that means is that you would have many more instances of cars overtaking one another, of classes overtaking one another, lapping and unlapping themselves. So that's just going to make things a lot more interesting. Many more I guess exchanges will probably happen later on. Of course, this is still a 90-minute race as Scott Newton goes very close to the rear bumper of Benjamin Gregory, locking up there. But of course, fortunately not running straight up his rear bumper. So this is still both of them, Gregory and Newton, still in first and second respectively.
Yeah, this is an absolutely excellent battle, which has just gone back and forward all the way through the race, and impossible to call right now. And it seems to me this is going to be about who blinks first, both for pit stops or if anyone makes even the slightest mistakes. We saw Scott Newton make a tiny mistake, and he paid for it handsomely, lost his lead, and Benjamin Gregory was able to go by as they're coming up behind one of the Corvettes, number 82 machine there of Andrew Hewson, the American driver, who's now split them. Look at that. So very cleverly, Gregory's been able to use that Corvette as a pick there, and Scott Newton's had to wait his turn and get back on the power again. But this is great stuff here from Benjamin Gregory.
So a clean move facilitated, of course, in part due to the three cars, especially. You know, when you've got fast cars coming up your rear end, it is kind of difficult to especially when they're much faster than you. Quite a lot of effort has to go in trying to coordinate these moves, and also to remain predictable as the other cars kind of make their way around you. So, you know, great job by the Corvette as well for making that safe pass happen. And you know, they're coming upon this Ferrari once again. I kind of like the paint scheme of this Ferrari, you know, very nice looking.
Yeah, Matthias Beer, he runs in our Apex Racing Academy GT4 series at the wheel of BMW M4, and he has a kind of very jazzy livery on that as well, and we've nicknamed them the German Austin Powers. Because it's like Austin Powers' apartment, and his Ferrari is quite similar there. It's got a very jazzy paint scheme on it as well, so that's cool to see.
So many more overtaking action to take place. So I would imagine that this is a point in which some of the GT3 cars are beginning to come in contact with the faster LMP2 class as they kind of lap themselves. And you know, I think in some moments it would probably also be up to the GTE cars. So this is a battle for the race lead. Daniel Lee versus Nicholas Danella, and this is it is Danella in the Corvette and Daniel Lee with the BMW M8. So you know, you can kind of see, you know, how these two cars with very much different handling characteristics, how these two cars face out with each other. You've got a Corvette which is rather nimble around the corners, you can throw the car around, and with the M8 which is, you know, surprisingly stable and yet has so much straight line speed as well.
It does indeed, yeah. The Corvette is mid-engine, so that gives it a lot more maneuverability. It's a 5.5 litre naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8, very nice engine, but the BMW front engine with a twin turbo, and yeah, like you say, huge straight line speed. The BMW M8 has won the Rolex 24 Hour at Daytona the last two runnings, so look at that, just makes blast by there for Daniel Lee. He parks the BMW on the apex. The Corvette of Denneler tries to cut back, but Lee has gone through. But this is an excellent battle. As you rightly say, Weihan, two cars which have such a different characteristic, but have very similar lap time. In practice, interesting, it looked like Denneler just had the edge on consistent race pace, so we'll watch how that evolves over the race, but so far absolutely nothing to separate these two drivers.
So riding on board the Corvette C8R GT of Nicholas Danella as he's got another LMP2 coming upon him. So right now, you know, when you've got an LMP2 car in front of you, which kind of separates you and the car you want to overtake in front of you, it does kind of throw the spanner into the works, and that is, of course, Benjamin Gregory and Scott Newton, these two LMP2 cars making their way around these two GTEs. So, you know, I think, you know, it's always tricky to try to find out where exactly you can let these cars around safely. Of course, you know, once it's over, the result of that has kind of resulted in this extended gap of 0.8 of a second between Lee and Danella. So, you know, sometimes when that happens, you do have the GT car in front did kind of increase its gap. So, you know, he's now coming upon the final corner, and this is where the, you know, overtaking moves can happen. But more importantly, you have to select the safest line around as much as possible.
Yeah, it looks like Daniel Lee is just going to get past this Audi GT3 car, sitting in second place in the Audi. Oh, the Audi shuts the door on Denneler there, holding his line. That could be critical there as well. But one of the leading Audi, leading up there as well, of Hervé, he's just up there holding up Daniel Lee now. So it's going to kind of rotate back again between Lee and between Lee and Denler in the Corvette. So really, really tricky stuff here getting through the traffic, but Lee gets through, and Denler in the Corvette flashing his lights furiously, trying to get through. He's got to get through here and try and get a good exit as well. Looks like he does. Now, interestingly, Han, when we were riding on board there, the Corvette, just before hitting the brakes at 170 miles an hour at the end of the straight, looked to me like Denler was just short shifting in the Corvette ever so slightly, perhaps trying to save a little bit of fuel over the stint.
Yeah, given that, we would expect one pit stop with these GTE cars, I think sometimes if you can save a little bit of fuel, it would go a long way, especially with this being a 90-minute long race. So we're on board the R8 GT3 of Gregory Werner, and he sits behind his teammate. Same car, same paint scheme, obviously, in front. And I think this battle has just been taking place all race long. The order here has not exactly changed at all.
Oh, and we've got Housen, Housen number 51 Audi has spun right in front of one of the other M Signs UK drivers. So I wonder, and he's just holding up the leaders now coming through. That was Daniel Lee. Just getting held up there slightly as well, and Denler has as well. So the traffic has been a lot kinder to Daniel Lee, and he's cut his way through very, very well. And that could be critical in this early stage of this GTE battle. So there go the LMP2 leaders past Housen in that bright orange Audi, and just loses it there, and that's so easily to do as well. Nicholas Housen, sorry, Australian, not American, my apologies. So yes, that's a really, really tricky part of the circuit, and that Audi, it's just such on a knife edge, Wehan.
Yeah, and again, especially if you couple it with the curbs that you find on the track, like Road Atlantis, tall curbs, bumpy surfaces here and there. If you're not careful, you can throw your car can kind of spin on you, and it can throw you out. But of course, with the LMP2 cars, it's very much a similar situation. You cannot push these LMP2 cars too much as you could with a front-engine GT car. And right now, Gregory is coming upon another GT3 car, so you can see that he takes the inside line. And it is very much moments like these when you kind of shut the door on a GT3 car, and if you're far ahead enough of the other LMP2 car, you can kind of maintain a bit of a gap for yourself. Of course, Scott Newton is fast enough to make his way around that GT3 car as well, so this battle still goes on. We have come past the 30-minute mark of the race, and we would expect pit windows to be open in the next couple of moments.
Absolutely, yep. It looks like I would expect the LMP2 drivers to come in any time in the next 2 laps for those guys. Maybe in the next 3 laps if they really stretch it, but we're coming to the end of the first stint for the LMP2 drivers. The GT drivers, they will go much, much longer. They will go to nearly an hour, particularly for the GT3 drivers. So, they've got plenty time to carry on. Some drivers will split the race in half. Will split pit at 45 minutes and just make it nice and simple. But others will run the tank dry to the end of the hour and then do a little splash towards the end. But the LMP2 runners, they will need to stop twice. And the first of those pit stops should be coming up very soon.
This is Toby Ward. He sits. Of course, he does sit behind another LMP2 car of what would appear to be a Jose in front of him. So this is a battle for third position. I think I think we have kind of observed two separate battles with the LMP2 classes. First, second in one battle, and third, fourth in another. And we're back with Gregory Werner once again, and he still sits behind his teammate. So, of course, pit windows have begun to open, and this is Benjamin Gregory presumably going in for his pit.
So Ben Gregory. Oh, Matthias Beer is off in the Ferrari. Oh no. What's happened to him in the 488 machine? Running in the GTE class. He just loses it on the way in there. Just loses it. So tricky. Going in, he just gets unsighted by one of the GT3 cars. That's the Audi of Housen. But yeah, that's interesting. Ben Gregory has gone in to take his pit stop, but Scott Newton has gone around, so he's got one more lap in the tank. That could be critical through this race. Let's see what happens here. We're getting a replay What does Scott Newton decide to do? This is interesting. Watches Ben Gregory going into pit lane. Does Scott get a little bit distracted? No, doesn't seem so. So that's reassuring. So likely we'll see Scott coming in on the next lap. And look at that. That's interesting, Wei-Han. Ben Gregory taking tyres.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you know, there are probably invisible air jacks holding the car up as the tires are being changed on iRacing.
Yeah, that is telling. So just after 35 minutes, so Ben Gregory putting new tyres on. Let's see if Scott Newton decides to do the same. We see if the air jacks go up, then he will be taking them as well. So he'll be just filling up with fuel right now into that Dallara carbon fibre chassis. Now let's see if he's going to take some tyres. Ben Gregory's car going up again. Strange. Or is he going again? No, he is going again. That's his teammate. My apologies. Very similar paint scheme. But let's see if Scott Newton's going to take tyres. This is the critical point of the race for the LMP2 class. And Scott Newton does take tyres. So that is very interesting, Wei-Han. I'm surprised these drivers need to take tyres so early.
Yeah, could be down to the fact that perhaps the LMP2 car tires would probably last in good condition up to the 1 hour mark. So, you know, I think some drivers, it would probably be a case of the drivers deciding to kind of take their tires early at this point, then perhaps using the next set of tires for the rest of the race. You know, consider that it's usually the first half of the race where most of the overtaking happens, and the second half is where, you know, it's all about trying to maintain your momentum and trying to maintain your position and bring your car home. I think that's where perhaps some of the drivers might base their strategies off of.
Exactly. Now we see, thanks to our producer Marco Barbanera, on the bottom right hand of your screen you'll see our SDK graphic with the track temperatures at the bottom right of your screen. 91 degrees Fahrenheit on the track, which is really important because the higher the track temperature is, there's a couple of effects. One, it wears the tyres out quicker, but also the grip is less. As the track gets very hot, it gets very greasy and slippy, and you just cannot lap at the same speed as you would if the track temper were a bit cooler. So that's certainly an issue, I would say. But I would be surprised if the LMP2 runners, as you see, Marco Tolman's had an issue here. He's had a spin at turn 10A and 10B. But yes, I would be surprised if the LMP2 drivers took a second set of tyres at their second stop with.
Yeah, I think if it came to that point, it might kind of consume more time for the drivers. So it's probably down to how well they're able to conserve their time. Oh, mistake! As we have a look at the replay with Marco Tolman, who, you know, unfortunately he braked a little too hard on entry, and, you know, that was enough to lock his car and kind of send his car around.
Yeah, of course. The big difference between the GTE machines like the BMW M8 and the Corvette compared to the GT3 machines of the Audi and the Mercedes is the GT3 machines do have anti-lock braking systems where the GTE machines do not, and very, very easy, especially on that downhill braking zone there, to lose to just lock a tyre up, and that can make all of the difference as well. But the braking performance of the GTE cars is better. It's just you have to be that little bit more delicate with your braking input.
So of course this is yet another Corvette GT who's made their way around Tyler Eva and Brado Werler. And here comes also another LMP2 car. So that is the LMP2 of, I would imagine, Benjamin Gregory, he's kind of found himself a fair ways back from Scott Newton, and of course Scott has built himself an approximately 4-second long breakaway from Gregory. So, you know, at this point, Scott would probably be in a little more comfortable position. He's now got a good margin of time behind him, so he's probably able to kind of carry this ahead as he tries to get into a rhythm. You know, kind of going into hot lap mode really when you find that you don't exactly have cars around you.
Absolutely, you're spot on there, Wei-Han. You've really got to make the most of this clean air, and Scott Newton has a lot of it here, and he can really, as you say, hot lap mode, qualifying mode. That's what he needs to do now, is really press on and use that slightly superior 1 lap pace that he has underneath that Apex Racing Team Dallara number 8 machine. Interestingly, he spent just 1 second less in the pit lane than Benjamin Gregory, which is interesting. So maybe just save that tiny bit extra of fuel, but just a tiny difference between the two. So as Scott Newton comes over the line, 1 minute 9.87, so he's really pushing the pace now. Ben Gregory only a 1 minute 10.91 that last time around. So I say only, that's still very fast. But Scott Newton really pressing on now that he's got some clean air.
Progressively increasing that gap, Scott Newton, he is. And his gap is, hovering around 4.2 seconds. So, we're just gonna continue with Tyler Elva and Braden Werner. So this is the battle for the lead of the GT3 class. So I think it's sometimes a little confusing, because both of them, they have the exact same paint scheme, nearly the exact same paint scheme. There might be some color indication there that might differentiate both cars. Of course, he does have in his way an LMP2 car who is seeking to kind of lap these two cars. So, once again, they have to be mindful of how they handle these cars that kind of want to lap them.
Yeah, it's a vital part of it as well to just see how that's going to shake out. But Tyler Haverse having a brilliant run so far, leading his teammate in first right now, coming down into turn 10A, 10B chicane, which was installed in 1997 when speeds were getting incredibly scary coming through there. You can imagine going through there without that chicane. It must be so fast as well. So it was actually installed just 1 year before the original Petit Le Mans, which was in 1998, which was the brainchild of Dr. Don Penoz, who bought the circuit in 1996. Now, what do we see here? Derek Holland in the P2 machine. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle there, and woof, straight into the wall. That's not good news for Derek Holland, and it's been an eventful race for the 280 machine so far, Weihan.
Yeah, as we have a look at the impact from his perspective, just missing the apex by a little bit and sending your car deep into the exit of the corner, and any little bit of an destabilization of this car is enough to send this car, out of the racing line. And unfortunately, that's what happened with him. So you can probably observe a little bit of an aero damage on his car.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. It looks like he's got away with it considering the speed of the impact. And makes another mistake there going into turn 3 and turn 4. But yes, of course, he will have just come out of the pit lane. He'd not pitted 1 or 2 laps ago, and running on full fuel, you've got a huge amount of fuel on board, and that weight makes an enormous difference in a car like this. And that change of direction just wasn't quite there that he needed. And not good news for Derek Holland. He drops back to 4th in class right now, but it's a long race. We've still got not even at halfway distance yet, so still got plenty of time to fight back.
So of course Derek sits 4th in class at this point, and I think he is in quite a clean air at this point, with nobody around to kind of upset his race pace at this point. So perhaps for him it's all about trying to also get into a rhythm of a kind of a hot lap style rhythm. So you can have a look at the timing tower, the positions grid tower to your left, and that kind of indicates where most of the cars are relative to one another in terms of positions. So at this point, you can see that that curve was enough to kind of slightly destabilize him as he made his way over the second right-hander.
Yeah, now this is interesting for Ben Gregory because he's not all out of options here. As long as he hasn't used his fast repair, he can try and get to what they call the critical lap, so the earliest you could pit and be able to get all the way home to the end of the race, which is probably about 35 minutes to go. He would be safe, and he could maybe pit that a little bit earlier than his rivals and take his fast repair. As he's gone off again, and there's a GT3 car off as well, one of the Mercedes now who is that? It's the 4th place in class of Klaus Nielsen. Matthias Beer is off, so there's all sorts of incidents going on all over the circuit. I don't know if any of them were connected, so let's get a replay here. So Matthias Beer, he's all on his own, heading down towards turn 1 in his 488 machine. Back a gear, gets a little bit loose, and then far too hot through turn 1, and then whack straight into that wall. And There's been some high-profile drivers have ended up in that wall, make no mistake about that. So Klaus Nielsen, he has a similar incident, completely separate, and manages to hopefully get it back on circuit safely. He does. So what happened to Ben Gregory then? Sorry, what happened to Holland? Holland had an error as well, so it's going from bad to worse for Derek Holland. But Ben Gregory at the moment sitting in second position, and he has not dropped off Scott Newton. He's only a couple of seconds up the road.
Yeah, one of the challenges with this circuit is that, especially with turn 1 and also a couple of other corners, is that if you do kind of miss the exit of the corner and you touch the exit, you kind of go over the curb. That's enough to kind of suck your car into the exit, the walls along the exit, and that's kind of enough to plow your car in. And this is Benjamin Gregory. He's managed to kind of close the gap a little bit. He's now up to 2 seconds, 2.3 seconds behind Scott Newton. So good progress made over the last couple of laps. He's probably going to try his best to close this gap a little more over the next couple of laps, and he will probably give Scott another go as we head into the next moments.
Well, they're incredibly closely matched on pace. A 1 minute 10.43 for Scott Newton and a 1 minute 10.52 for Benjamin Gregory. So incredibly close between the two on that last lap. But all comes to do with the traffic. You can see there, lap 36, Newton quite slow on that lap. That would have been lap traffic or maybe a minute, a small mistake. But at the moment, he's got to try and fight his way through the traffic. Which will be, now that we've got to this stage in the raceway, Han, this will be almost a constant battle for the LMP2 cars. There's always going to be traffic to get through.
Yeah, I would imagine that with so many classes, with 3 classes, with varying paces with each of the drivers, so I think it does contribute to the fact that there are many more cars lapping each other. Many more instances of this happening. So you don't exactly have like a specific window of time, specific rhythm of time where cars make the kind of find and lap traffic ahead of them. It just kind of happens on a rolling basis, kind of. So Scott Newton making his way around another GT3 car. He does so in the midst of the S's, which is very difficult to pull off. He's just done so, in fact. Of course, fair play by the GT3 car in making that happen safely. And so would Benjamin Gregory. He would do the same overtaking maneuver on the GT3 class car, on the AMG GT3 rather, and kind of rejoin his pursuit of Scott Newton, which is worth 2.4 seconds.
Yep, they're very closely matched. I think it's going to come right down to the wire. Nothing to be separated on pit stop time, and as you can see, their lap speed very close. But when it seems to me, Wayhan, that whenever Scott Newton can get into clean air, he just has that little bit of an edge. He's got that maybe that extra bit of pace up his sleeve compared to Benjamin Gregory. But Benjamin Gregory not making any mistakes and not letting him get away whatsoever. A classic Petit Le Mans battle here. Of course, there's been so many since the first running of Petit Le Mans in 1998, which was won by one of my favourite cars of all time, the Ferrari 333 SP, with Wayne Taylor, Eric Van der Poel and Emmanuel Collard at the wheel. And of course, Petit Le Mans was the brainchild of Dr. Don Penoz, who did so much for American sports car racing, but also he made his money, Dr. Don Penoz. He was the guy that invented the nicotine patch to help smokers kick their habit.
Oh, what history, in fact. Well, that's very great to know. And I think I would imagine that the Petit Le Mans has also contributed so much to regional motorsports in the US, especially when it goes along the very famous endurance events. And more so, I think with a bit of mistake by the BMW M8, and that fortunately did not kind of destabilize Scott Newton's pace there. Scott and Gregory made it through safely. So we have a look at the replay of what exactly happened. So we ride on board Scott Newton as he trails along this M8, and this is him going into the entry of the corner. So very good reflexes by Scott. He nearly locked up there, but he managed to kind of save his car a little bit and avoid the M8.
Wow, that was very impressive car control there from Scott Newton. He, like you say, very quick reactions. And the Dallara P2 car, when you upset it and you lose the aerodynamics briefly, the car will just snap and rip your head off. It is such a difficult car to drive on the limit, and both Scott Newton and Benjamin Gregory mastering it right now. But I tell you what, this GTE battle still rolling on. Daniel Lee, his BMW M8 is got a few battle scars on the front left panel of it there, as you can see. Obviously been in a little bit of contact, and the Corvette of Denneler's not too far behind at all. So, and really close in all three classes, Weihan.
Yeah, absolutely. So many tight battles still taking place at this point. We've come past the halfway mark of this race. So I think even for some of these cars, we could have a second pit window open in a moment's time. So, quite a substantial, aero damage to the front end of the BMW M8 of Daniel Lee. But so, I think it might have caused a bit of a straight line speed disadvantage for him. But of course, he still has a 2-second gap ahead of the GT3 car behind him. So right now, I think he's just going to try his best to hold up on his position as much as possible and try to kind of maintain whatever advantage he has ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. It's interesting because he's definitely in a strong pit window here as Daniel Lee. He's maybe taking advantage of the clean air that he has right now for the moment, but I suspect it would be a good time for him to come in and get that fast repair and get that pit stop out of the way, and then he's got a quick race car to head to the end. But he's obviously happy enough. In terms of lap time for Daniel, he's well, he's just set his fastest lap of the race. So whatever damage he's done to that car, you should get BMW on the phone, because that is his fastest lap, 1 minute 16.24. So whatever damage he's done to it, it seems to be suiting him quite well.
Exactly. So right now he's coming upon some lapped GT3 cars, and of course, in the as you come upon the 15-minute mark, you will have already come upon quite a lot of lap traffic at this point. So this is an LMP2 car going around the two GT3 class leaders. So of course, it is still Elvi and Werner battling it out for the race lead of this GT3 class, and that was the LMP2 who's made its way around, going around the SS. If you do get a better shot of the cars of these two classes, you will notice that these GT3 cars do kind of mount the curve. The wheels go on top of the curb completely, whereas with the LMP2 cars, it does not happen so.
No, you really don't. The LMP2 cars do not like the curbs as much. The GT3 cars, you can really, like you say, really use a lot of curb and right on top of them with the advantage of the traction control systems that the GT3 cars have. But the LMP2 cars are very, very grown up. They require real delicacy, and you see a lot of ex single seater drivers, Formula 2 drivers, and Formula 3 drivers doing very well in LMP2 because of that background, driving cars with a lot of aerodynamic ability. So riding on board of the Corvette C8R of Denneler. Listen to this brand new 5.5 litre V8 flat crank in this aluminium hydroformed aluminium frame, which is identical to the new Corvette Stingray road car. The two cars were built alongside one another and taken from the assembly line in Bowling Green, Kentucky, where the Corvettes are made. And a lot riding on this new car, this new Corvette, both in racing and on the street for General Motors, a very significant part of their product range. And now the Corvette going to be sold in right-hand drive in a number of markets, which is very exciting.
Yeah, well, if that means that I can see Corvettes in Singapore where it's right-hand drive, that would be so awesome, because we've already got Mustangs. We have Mustangs in the local market already. We don't have Camaros. We don't have Ford GTs, and we're just hoping that we can see some of the Corvettes around here. It would be so nice. This is Braden Werner again with Tyler Elvi, and would appear that they might have changed positions. But, it's just a bit hard for me to tell, because these two cars share the exact same paint scheme.
Yep, they are. They're certainly giving their team photographer plenty chances for a good promotion shot, that's for sure. With, of course, the GT3 cars have a very useful LED lighting system on the windshield, which signifies where they are in class. So 0-1 and 0-2, that's the perfect view for these two teammates right now. But I have to say, I can't be long before we see the GTE runners. Daniel Lee has a little bit of a slide there. Has he saved it? Just. Wow. Oh, that was, sorry, my apologies. There's Daniel Lee's teammate there having an issue, but Daniel has survived. That is his teammate there who had that little problem. But that's I would expect the GTE runners to come in, and here they are then. Denelers come in the Corvette. 55 minutes down, so plenty of time to go for him. Let's see if Denelers decides to take tyres. He's come out his pit stop. He does not take tyres, so I tell you what, making tyres last 90 minutes around here, Wihan, is going to be tricky.
And so got a perfect camera angle of this Corvette car of Andrew Hewson going into the pits for his pit stop. So fuel stop definitely, and I think tires with the race being 90 minutes long, it is sometimes worth putting on a fresh pair of shoes just to handle it. So that is probably the teammate of the other's Parallax Racing car. This is Braden Weller, who's also going into the pits for his pit stop.
Coming in on the pit limiter, sitting in second gear, just trundling along at what feels like walking speed. An interesting look at that, his teammate, the number 37 car of Hervé, has carried on, so they're splitting their strategy slightly. GT3 car might be able to go 2 laps more possibly on fuel, but we'll see how that one plays out over this cycle here. But perfect run so far for these two Audis of Hervé and Werner.
So great racing by these drivers, of course, all night long. So right now it is Eva who leads the GT3 field, and to add to kind of some of the advantage that he might have, he has a GTE car behind him, which would probably signify that the next GT3 car behind of him is a fair ways behind. In fact, it would appear that he's probably the next cars behind of him would probably be a lap behind. So Tyler goes into the pits as well. So this is where the positions will begin to equalize for all the drivers.
Well, who I want to see is now that is the number we're looking at, the number 96 of Denelers. Deneler, he come in for another pit? He has. I don't believe it. He has come in twice. And to take tyres, so we saw him move forward slightly from his pit stall when he took his stop, and then he's had to take tyres. I do not believe it. What a mistake from Deneler. That could change everything. Well, it will change everything in the GTE battle and allow Daniel Lee a big gap.
So we're just observing the various cars, this will probably be, the cars from each class already in the pits. We'll just see who exactly comes out first. So this is Benjamin Gregory. He's going to exit. It's going to be such a far distance behind Scott Newton. Of course, it would probably mean that Scott would be due for a pit stop in the next couple of moments. We are close to the 1 hour mark, so 1/3 of the race left to go at this point. And Benjamin Gregory, he sits in third with Buisson, who sits in second, and he is 13 seconds ahead.
Well, Scott Newton putting in his fastest lap, or the fastest lap of the race last time around, a 1 minute 9.75. Now, what happened there with Scott Newton? I just looked at the timing screen just away, and I heard our producer Marco Barbonero nearly have a heart attack. So did you catch that one, Way?
Unfortunately, I think I might have missed that.
We'll see. Big traffic apparently we're hearing. So Scott Newton just getting through that. So this definitely won't be his fastest lap on this particular occasion. But he did last time around a 1 minute 9.75. Now, interestingly, given when Scott stopped, he should have a bit more time left in the tank. He probably could go for another 8 laps or so if he wanted to, but it'll be interesting to see if he covers off Ben Gregory's strategy and just comes in and takes a little splash here. He might with this bit of traffic up in front. Let's see if he covers Gregory's stop. No, he carries on. So, of course, these cars are very sensitive to weight. So if you can run on low fuel, that, as Scott is now proving, these cars are really, really quick. So he might be that he just wants to run the car as empty as possible to try and get as many laps on low fuel as he can.
Yeah, that's exactly going to serve quite a good advantage, or it's going to serve to the benefit of Scott as with less fuel. Although the car becomes less stable, I sometimes some drivers do prefer having a bit more fuel to stabilize that car. It would be much faster lap time. So he's making his way around the GT3 car as well. So you have an entanglement of LMP2's GT3s and the GT3s in the scene that was just happening a couple of seconds ago. And of course, this is a scene of. Unfortunately, it would appear that Nicholas Danella has retired from the race. Just a couple of moments ago, and this kind of leaves the field with one less car, in fact. So we're now continuing with Tyler L5, who is still leading the GT3 field. He leads Braden Werner. Of course, these two teammates, they're back together once again, battling it out at the pointy end of the GT3 field.
They have not been separated all day long. What a crying shame for Nicholas Denneler. He was doing such a good job in that new Corvette C8R. I'm just getting word as well that he had problems with his crew chief software. So typical racing driver error. Always blame the crew chief, but there definitely was some sort of issue with the pit stop. What a pity, because it was impossible to call that battle. Weihan, it was going to go all the way to the line with battling with Daniel Lee, but that gives Daniel Lee a nice, comfortable margin to ease it home in his BMW M8. And we see Daniel racing at the front in the Apex Racing League GT Championship every Sunday night in that very car. But back at the front of P2, Scott Newton has not come into pit lane yet, so he's not covered off Ben Gregory's strategy as yet. So clearly still running the car to the end of his stint. I would expect probably another 7 or 8 laps or so he has left in that car, so he could keep going for that time.
So just observing Scott Newton taking on a couple more cars, making his way around the traffic. So what Scott is probably trying to do is to chart himself more pace at this point. Of course, it's probably just like you just say, it's going to run his tank dry. It's likely going to run his tank dry, and in the process, he's trying to gain as much of a gap ahead of the rest of the field as possible, doing so with a lighter car. So at this point, he's kind of got clear traffic ahead and behind of him. So right now, once again, he's going to go perhaps on hot lap mode, and right now he's likely coming upon lap traffic.
Yeah, clear air and a light car, that's exactly what you want, and when you get it, you have to make the most of it. That lack of weight just gives you so much more lap speed in these P2 cars. I remember the old Acura HPD ARX, which this car has replaced, was like that. It was so sensitive to the weight of fuel in the tank, and on low fuel on new tyres, it was just a dream, that car. I miss it dearly. It was certainly a much more forgiving car than this one. This one is maybe more for the more professional driver than I am, Weihan.
Yeah, well, one thing that's probably changed with these new with the arrangement of these new prototypes and GT cars is that the GT cars no longer have the straight line speed that that the old GT1s shared with the LMP2 cars. So you no longer see kind of drag races between a prototype and a GT car. It was probably a sight back in the day, but not so much nowadays.
No, definitely not. There's probably a bit more balance between them now. The LMP2 car is not having a problem to blast by on the straight, which of course is the much more safer way to pass lap traffic. But I tell you what, I wonder, Weihan, if these two teammates here in these Audi's first and second in class of Hervé and Werner. It'll be very interesting to see if they're allowed to race. I wonder if they have any calls like, what is it? It could be like Fernando is faster than you. Do you understand this message? Or multi-21. I wonder if there'll be any of that. I doubt it. I think hopefully they'll be allowed to battle. 25 minutes to go here at Road Atlanta. One of my absolute favourite circuits anywhere in the world. Of course, in the 1980s, this circuit used to be owned by one of the most significant, or one of the most successful marijuana smugglers ever in history, a guy called Randy Lanier, who was actually the 1984 IMSA Camel GT champion. And he used to own this circuit as a way to, and I quote, do testing and launder money. Also, him and his friends used to land their private aircraft on the very long back straight as well, and it's rumoured that the back straight here was used as a kind of private airstrip for bringing in products, shall we say.
It's Grand Theft Auto in real life, man.
It is, yeah.
So, broadcast director behind having a good time as well. Last week Marco and I covered the BMW 120 that took place on this track, and quite aptly so we are having a look at another BMW M8 GT. So, if you have a look at the final corner, what Marco pointed out was that there is this bridge, and right below the bridge hangs a couple of flags, and it so happens that if you position your car right under the flags as you take the entry of the final corner, you will find yourself exactly that. You will find yourself getting the best racing line through the final corner, which is exactly what all of these cars have just done.
I see, there you go. Racing tips from Wei-Han Chan. So, now, here we go. No multiple 21 going on here between Werner and Hervé. Who is going to get the better of this battle? 23 minutes to go, and it's almost as if like someone's flicked the switch saying, okay, gloves off, let's have a fight. And they've just been separated by the number 13 of Benjamin Gregory, who has completed all of his pit stops. He does not need to come in again at the wheel of his Dallara. Now for Scott Newton, we're expecting, I would expect him to come in about the next 3 laps or so. Depending, any time in the next 3 laps, we should see Scott Newton come in to take his pit stop.
Yeah, so we're now back with the GT3 field once again. So these two drivers, they're keeping it extremely well together, even in the midst of a lot of lap traffic that's kind of pressuring them from different places. So that every now and then sandwiching between them. And one of the most important things with racing multi-class especially is that it helps to kind of think, to kind of predict, or rather to have, first of all, to have to have track knowledge, and thereafter plan your moves in advance. So for example, you can decide to overtake in this corner, but that will slow your bunch down, or you can hold off for a little while and overtake at the subsequent corners or at the subsequent stretch, and that will save time and also allow you to execute a much cleaner move, making life easier for everyone.
Of course, this Audi here, the Audi R8 GT3 machine, has won at Petit Le Mans twice in 2014 and 2017. But interestingly, in the original Audi R8, the LMP car, as we see him move for the lead here, Werner goes past on his teammate Hervé, and Hervé shuts the door straight back again. They flash at one another. Oh, interesting. Very typical Audi driver behaviour there, using the headlight flasher liberally. As Werner takes the lead then from Hervé, and yes, not impressed at all. They both flash their lights furiously as they come down into turn 10A and 10B. So this is, any thoughts of team orders? Well, they have been disproved quite quickly there. But yes, the original Audi R8 LMP car started off a run of 9 consecutive outright victories for Audi back in the 2000s, when they were just utterly dominant, winning to win 9 outright victories in a row here at Petit Le Mans. Just incredible. And of course, the latter of those being with the R10 TDI diesel, which Alan McNish back in 2008 actually crashed on the parade lap to the grid, crashed the car, started 2 laps down, and still won the race.
Of course, like we've all shared before, I think Road Atlanta has seen many exciting racing stories taking place. So just as Daytona has, just as Sebring has, Road Atlanta is also up there with all these legendary racetracks in North America. And this is Scott Newton taking down making his lapping maneuver across yet another GTE car. And so far he's been doing a good job with that. So we're down to 20 minutes of green flag racing to go here at Road Atlanta. And it would appear that Braden Werner has perhaps come ahead of Tyler Elvine.
Yes, he has. Yeah, made that move at turn 7, and he has not relinquished the position. Now Scott Newton's right behind them, but we should be expecting Scott in the pits any time now to take his last stop of the day, and it will be fascinating to see where he comes out in reference to Benjamin Gregory. So here he comes then, Scott Newton coming into pit lane on the limiter of this beautiful Dallara P217 machine, made in the heart of Italy. And Mr. Dallara, Mr. Gianpaolo Dallara, 83 years old, still running the company. But the average age of the employees in Dallara, just 34. So Mr. Dallara very keen on encouraging young talent in his engineering team. And Wayhan, would you believe it's not just race cars that Dallara produced? They actually produced the hand cycle, which Alex Zanardi used to win gold in the London Paralympics in 2012. So here comes Ben Gregory. This is going to be incredibly close. Now that's interesting. Scott Newton taking tyres. I don't think Ben Gregory took tyres on his pit stop. So Ben goes past, and with just 90 minutes to go, that could be pivotal.
So how would the strategy that Scott has I guess employed, how is it going to play out at this point? We've got not much time left towards the end of the race. So I think at this point, Scott is probably going to have to try his best to close back up with Benjamin Gregory. So of course, Gregory over the chat, he's asking if Scott had just taken tires, and I think it would appear to be that some drivers are beginning to get a little confused.
This is interesting stuff, because I think Ben Gregory should be okay for fuel to get to the end. You usually get about 35 minutes out of the tank, and he has that up his sleeve just. But I have to say, Wayhan, very strange call from Scott Newton to take tyres there, because he's only got, now 17 minutes of this race remaining, so I don't know if he's going to have the time to really push and get the most out of them. And the gap between these two drivers now, it's 20 seconds. I don't know if he's going to be able to take 20 seconds out in such a short number of laps.
At the same time, we would also probably try to see if Benjamin Gregory would begin to go on a fuel-saving drive. If we have a look at the number of pit stops that these drivers have taken, it would appear that Scott Newton, both drivers have taken two pit stops. So I think it could well be that the favor has gone into the hands of Benjamin Gregory, despite the fact that Scott Newton had led for such a long time earlier on.
Yeah, it's interesting now, because Scott Newton has taken 22 seconds longer in pit lane over the course of this entire race, and that will all be to do with that last pit stop there, taking tyres. So that signifies that Ben Gregory did not take tyres the last time around, and I think Ben Gregory is okay on fuel. I think he pitted at just the right moment to get home, but I can only think that for Scott that was just a mistake, taking tyres there. He might have had it accidentally switched on. We'll find out after the race, but that could be critical to the outcome of this race.
So this is Jose going into the pits as well. He has gone in, I would presume, for fuel, as we don't see his car being jacked up in the air for tires. So, we're having a look at Scott Newton, who is in P2 instead of P1 at this point. He's coming under a bit of some more lap traffic, which might slow his pursuit of course, this is a pursuit that he has to make the full use of. He has to make the full use of the next 15 minutes to see how much ground he's going to be able to cover. So we're now with Benjamin Gregory, who comes upon some lap traffic over at the backstretch, and we're now going to go on the replay and have a look at something that might have happened.
So let's see, this is Klaus Nielsen in the Mercedes AMG GT3. He's got one of the Corvettes up behind him. Oh, just runs a bit wide and whack, nose first into the wall. Oh, and one of the other Mercedes gets caught out by, almost follows him through there. Ah, what a mistake there from Klaus Nielsen. And with the engine at the front of that Mercedes, that might have engine damage, and that could be his day over, as Bradley Hulse was caught out with that one as well. And oh, big dab of oversteer. Oh, well held, sir. Oh, well held, sir. That was that could have been an enormous accident, but he just about hung on to it there. Very impressive indeed. Back at the front of GT3, this is the main battle now, and Werner, after making that move past his teammate Hervé in quite controversial fashion, well, he just seems to be stretching ever so slightly as a couple of GTE cars going through there. That's Matthias Bier in the Ferrari, trying to get through using the pace there, but there's not, as you said earlier, Weihan, there's not much difference between these cars in a straight line.
So we're just going to see a variety of cars. In fact, this is, I'm not exactly certain if that Ferrari is a GTE or a GT3.
It's a GTE. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, I would say, Weihan, that we would both classify ourselves as racing nerds. And even me as a racing nerd, and I'm sure you as well, I cannot tell the difference between the GTE and the GT3 version. They are identical. But yes, it is a GTE, I can confirm that.
That's good to know. So of course that means that the GTE is going to be battling, most likely going to be battling with the M8 right in front of him. So right now, once I think this battle has been going on since the start of this race, battle for the race lead. I'm tempted to think of both these drivers being, I guess, close of each other. Given that they have such similar paces. If we have a look at the best laps. Braden Werner set a 1:18.66 and Tyler Elvise set a 1:18.87. So 0.2 of a second different from each other, which is very, very close, all right.
Oh, look at this. Now, if you're wondering, viewers, why on earth Werner is weaving about, he's trying to stop Hervé from drafting him. Now, although these guys are teammates, clearly no interest in helping one another. Yeah, this is battle on. Gloves off now. So let's see who is going to come out on top of this inner team war between Werner and Hervé. We see this plenty times in real world motorsports, battling between teammates, and sometimes it can end in tears. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully we get a nice clean battle to the end. As I think that's one of the LMP2 cars coming through there. Is that? Yes, that's race leader number 13, Benjamin Gregory, and yeah, Scott Newton, he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to close down. There's only 12 minutes to go, and at the moment, Scott only holding about 17 seconds away. So, yeah, this is going to be probably a bit of a tall order for Scott.
So this is Benjamin Gregory. He's still going to be faced with some, lap traffic. So the road ahead is, I think it is probably safe to say that the road ahead for Gregory is rather well paved at this point, although he does face some lap traffic here and there.
I guess the thing is for I guess the thing is for Gregory is that he now has that cushion in hand. He has that margin where he doesn't have to take risks in traffic, whereas Scott Newton does. Scott Newton has to take big risks in traffic if he wants to have any chance of winning this race. Now, looking at Derek Holland in the number 280 Dallara, and whack, he punts the rear of, I think that was Daniel Lee, our GTE leader, was it? No, it was Dean Powell, his teammate, the identical livery 224 machine. He's just getting a little bit checked up here behind a GT3 car, and then boom! Oh dearie me, it's like being hit up the back by a JCB.
So we're continuing, as we've just observed, what would probably appear to be a weather change within the iRacing's, the iRacing universe of their own unique weather system, where weathers can change every now and then between sunny and cloudy, just with a snap of a finger apparently. So I think this is going to perhaps mean that the track temperatures will will become hotter once again. So track temps at this point, it's 27 Celsius, which is in fact quite a good temperature for these tires. You know, of course, if it were colder just now, it would mean that drivers would have had much more grip. So we're still with Braden Werner, who's still ahead of Tyler Elvira, and they've almost come into contact bumper to bumper, and we've received a notice from the race control that there had been a review of the incident between Holland and Powell.
Well, it looked to me just like a bit of a racing incident, really, but very, very tricky to say. Now, interestingly, the lap before last, Scott Newton pulled 3 seconds out of Ben Gregory. Ben Gregory getting held up in traffic. Now, Scott Newton still taking time out, but it's still 14 seconds down, so he is closing the gap, but it's just not quick enough. And you'd have to say that if Scott hadn't taken those tyres, you have to say he would have been in the lead of this motor race.
Yeah, so right now in LMP2 car between the two teammates once again, you know, I think they're kind of used to this already. You know, they've had so many cars go between the both of them, you know, and sometimes they'll just kind of be present between them for a couple of moments before they're moving on ahead when the next straight comes about. So at this point, you know, we're coming towards the final few moments of the race. So as much as possible, these drivers are going to give their all to kind of make the most out of whatever track time they have left before the checkered flag. So, you know, unfortunately, it does seem that the rest of the drivers, you know, they are kind of more sparsely spaced apart. You know, I think this is one of the this does happen when your race is a little longer. You know, cars become slightly further apart. So, you know, I think right now, you know, the mindset for these drivers is that they'll probably be deciding to focus on whatever battles that's going to happen, well, right within their vicinity, I guess, and they'll focusing on making the most out of the final few minutes.
Yeah, this battle has raged on all race long. We've just got just a little under 8 minutes to go here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Werner versus Hervé in this Audi R8 inter-team battle, and Hervé now right in the draft here. Will Werner stay straight, or will he try to weave around to try and break that toe? He's trying to move ever so slightly, it seems, as they follow each other down the back straight. Now, given their teammates, they're likely to be running either exactly the same or a very similar setup to these Audi R8 GT3 machines. Down into the chicane they go, 10A and 10B, and up the hill underneath the Suzuki motorcycle bridge, then through this wonderful last corner. I love this final corner. You can almost pretty much flat out in one of these GT cars, especially on new tyres, and yeah, wonderful fast flowing part of the circuit. But really, Ben Gregory, he has not made a mistake, but look at that gap in the last 5 laps. Scott Newton has been tearing times out of Ben Gregory, but he just doesn't quite have enough time left to make those new tyres work.
So Scott Newton has managed to close that gap, but you know, it leaves to be seen if this would come to fruition as we come to the next, you know, as we proceed with the next few moments. So, you know, I think a lot of thought had gone behind the strategies that these two drivers, Benjamin Gregory and Scott Newton, you know, a lot of thought had gone behind their strategies. But, you know, I think sometimes when it does get implemented, sometimes, you know, you don't always have perhaps the best expectations. So we're now back with Werner and Elvira once again. So right now you could see that, you know, both of them, they're squeezing each other. This is a switch for the lead, and right now Elvira has gone up to the race lead, to the leader of the GT3 class.
He has indeed, yep. So and Werner didn't really object too much there. He knew he had the pace and gave him plenty of room for his teammates. So the battle continues, though. Werner's not going to let him have it too easy, but Hervé, he definitely feels like he's got a score to settle after the controversial pass at turn 7 between these two drivers a handful of laps ago. Just just over 5 minutes of this race, and I tell you what, Hervé really putting the hammer down here, going through turn 5, over the curbs, back on the gas, down towards turn 6. A wonderful combination of corners here. Like you said, Wei Han, there's just no rest around the circuit until you get to that long back straight, and this is the corner, turn 7. You've got to get the car straightened up and open up the power as early as you can. And oh, Hervé getting a little bit of a wiggle there, opening up that 560 horsepower of that R8 Audi V10, and down they go then for a couple more laps to go here at Road Atlanta. We've had 71 laps so far, and this battle has raged on all the way through that time.
Down into the downhill braking zone, so we've seen so many drivers making mistakes as they break into this chicane. Of course, it does kind of pose a challenge for the cars, especially when they don't exactly have come equipped with the ABS. Not the case for the GT3s though. So right now we have the LMP2 car sandwiched between these two GT3 cars once again, and this is going to, I think every time that happens, so it does kind of increase the gap just a fair bit between the GT3 cars. So we do have a look at Derek Holland, who might have made had an off as he made his way around that right-hander.
Yeah, just went off at turn 7 there. That really critical point is maybe got a little bit of curb on the inside perhaps, but Scott Newton continues to take time out of Ben Gregory. But look at Ben Gregory's pace: 1 minute 10.7, 1:11.6, 1 minute 10.4, 1:10.6, 1:10.9. That is really consistent pace through the traffic, and that has basically meant that no matter how, Scott Newton's pace is unbelievable, under 1 minute 10 a lot of the time, and but still not going to be quite quick enough. In fact, on the last lap, Scott Newton set a 1 minute 9.4, the fastest lap of the entire race of anybody, and that gap is now down to 8.5 seconds. So, he's going to have to really push, but it would take a mistake, I think, now from Ben Gregory.
Down to 3 minutes of green flag racing to go, but of course we could, it could mean that there would be perhaps 3 or 4 laps depending on at which point in time the lead driver crosses the start-finish line. So we're back with Elvira once again. So these two drivers, they've been switching positions for a couple of moments during this race, and it leaves to be seen which of these two Parallax Racing drivers will come across the start-finish line ahead of the other.
Yep, it's impossible to call. Hervé in ahead right now with Werner right on his tail. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many laps this is going to go on for. As you say, Wuhan, all depends on when Ben Gregory goes over the line in his LMP2 leading machine. And these guys are really pushing hard. Their pace, very, very impressive indeed. They've been the class of the field in GT3, both with a best lap time of 1 minute 18.8 and 1 minute 18.6, the best that the rest of the GT3 runners can do. They're in the 1 minute 20 and 1 minute 21 gap, so they've been in their own world really, and certainly getting in some great practice for the Petit Le Mans race next weekend. But I wonder, is Werner going to have a look here? He's got the lights on, the light is coming down, it's dimming. Is he going to have a look here coming into the final stages?
Final stages indeed, as these cars make it around these SS1 for yet another time. So, we can see that temperatures have kind of dipped down again. It is 22 degrees Celsius air temperature and 27 Celsius track temperature, and we've got a thundering LMP2 behind who is also trying to find his way around. That is the number 13 of Benjamin Gregory. So this is, Benjamin is trying his best to be ahead as much as possible, but of course his gap ahead of Scott Newton has, it would appear that it's just been hovering around 14 seconds. So, unfortunately this does mean that I think Scott Newton's opportunities have probably run dry, with the race coming to a close in the next couple of moments.
I think we have a little bit of an error on our timing tower. It's showing on my timing screen of just 6.7 seconds between. So there's Ben Gregory just going under the Suzuki bridge, and Scott Newton, I think, at turn 10A and 10B. So I think about 6.5 seconds or so. But This would be the last lap now for Ben Gregory, so it would need a very, very big mistake to lose out to Scott Newton now. And Scott Newton could play a factor in this GT3 battle as he gets in the middle of those two GT3 contestants, and Hervé just holding out there, and that just created a small gap between them. If Werner wants this victory, he's going to have to really push in these final sectors.
Yeah, so it is the battle of of both teammates that has been ensuing, that has been raging on all race long. And while in fact you do have flashing of headlights between the both teammates, so it is Werner behind at this point. But of course, at various points of this race, it hadn't been the case. So we could well be coming upon the white flag in any moment. But of course, we're now back with Benjamin Gregory, and he is probably going to finish this race.
Here he goes then. Ben Gregory, the number 13 Dallara, is going to win here at Petit Le Mans, here in the Apex Racing League. A flawless drive, overcoming Scott Newton. As we see Hervé, is he having a look? He does. Oh, Hervé is defending from Werner. Who is going to take this? Werner on the inside, Hervé on the outside. They go side by side into the final corner. It's going to be a photo finish. Who takes it? It is Werner. Just gets it on the line from Hervé. Hervé leading most of the race, but Werner just edges him by an absolute whisker. What a finish to that GT3 battle, and for Daniel Lee, a great battle for him and a great win for him in the BMW. Let's get a replay then of the end of this race. So Werner behind in second place. He's in the draft of Hervé. Look at that, he's closing. That is all aerodynamic draft, that slipstream effect. They come down into the braking zone. Werner's gone to the outside, he brakes that a little bit earlier, goes for the cutback, then shoves it up the inside, just mugs his teammate there, and through they go then under the Suzuki bridge to the final corner, and there is just nothing to separate them here as they come over the line. Oh, the width of a number plate.
It would have been impossible to be able to tell apart, whichever of these drivers would have come ahead of each of the other one, and what a finish to the GT3 cars, and more very much so also for the other classes. Also, we've seen how strategy played a part for the results of the LMP2 class. So Scott Newton's strategy, I would imagine that Scott's strategy did play well for most of the race, but I guess it was probably a slight miscalculation on his part which led to Gregory retaining to his race lead.
Yeah, for Braden Werner and Tyler Hervé, they could not be separated by 1/100th of a second, so went down to thousandths on the timing screen. Absolutely incredible. So let's get a confirmation then of the race results. Ben Gregory wins by 7.3 seconds from Scott Newton after a very controversial change of tyres at the end of the race. Jose Buzan, the Spaniard, comes home in third, just 1 minute behind Ben Gregory, our eventual leader, with Toby Ward in fourth and Derek Holland in fifth. Winner in the GTE class was Daniel Lee at the wheel of his BMW M8. Eike Weinberg in the first of the Corvettes finishes second in class, followed by Dean Powell, Andrew Hewson, Matthias Beer and Marco Tolman. In GT3, Tyler Hervé wins by just under a 1/100th of a second from his teammate Braden Werner. Bradley Hulse rounds out the podium in third, with Nicholas Hausen and Klaus Nielsen in fourth and fifth in class. And unfortunately, we lost Nicholas Denneler halfway through the race with a technical issue after a great battle for the lead in class with Daniel Lee. Well, what a finish to that race that was. And looks like we have Braden Werner in the interview waiting room for us. So let's get him in for a little bit of a chat. Braden, oh, mate, I really feel for you. Just edged out by under 1/100th of a second there. Tell us about the race and how you found it.
Yeah, so we went into this race using it as a practice for Petit Le Mans. It was a really great event put on. And we went into it. There were no team orders. We were like, we'll see who comes out ahead. I mean, obviously we raced a little safe, but it came down to the last corner, and it was a very engaging race, but just got edged out at the end there. Really, really great race.
Oh, it was impossible to call there as well. And heading into Petit Le Mans next week, are you guys sharing the same car next week?
Yes, we will. Us two under Parallax Racing will be doing the Petit Le Mans. Hopefully, we'll make it into Top Split too. So that should be a great race too.
That will be very exciting. Of course, the Petit Le Mans, one of the both in sim racing and in the real world, one of the absolute jewels in the endurance racing crown. Have you had any experience of watching the real world race or been trackside for that?
I have not been to a real Petit Le Mans, but me and Tyler, we both love this track. This is our favorite track. So whenever the Petit Le Mans comes around, we either do the sprint races if we're not racing together, or this year we're actually doing it together. So we're just really excited about this race. Yeah.
Oh, well, we wish you both the very best of luck for the race. A long race, 10 hours, but from what we saw today, you guys are in with a great shot. Now, before we let you go to go and enjoy the Team 1-2, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to live here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network?
I'll just give a shout out to Rafe Shaw for being a great crew chief during that race, and that'll be it.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Braden, very best of luck next week for Petit Le Mans, and hopefully see you get a good result. Thanks for coming to join us.
Thank you, guys.
So that was Braden Werner in the commentary box, and I believe we have our outright race winner in LMP2, Ben Gregory, who's with my colleague, Wei Han.
So Ben, wow, what an exciting race, Petit Le Mans that had taken place. You took the outright win, and I think at various points I would have seen that both yourself and Scott Newton had exchanged positions, and what Peter and I would have thought of was that that there had been probably some strategies that both you guys were playing, very different strategies that both you guys employed throughout the second half of the race, and I think the way the strategy was executed, it kind of went in your favor, as we came to the close of the race. So could you tell us more about how all that happened?
That was probably one of the hardest races I've actually had in a prototype full stop actually, and thanks to Scott to keeping it super clean and respectful as well. I feel so bad for the start because he got a black flag off the start for being in front of me when it went green. I didn't know when the green flag was actually going to come out. I was waiting to a bit later down the hill, but luckily he got that cleared, and it was a good race from there. I think strategy-wise, I think he took tyres in the final stop, which, as you saw on the final stint, he was reeling me in. So it was a very good race. A bit sweaty from that one as well. That was a proper run.
That's great to hear. So, could you tell us a little more, because this LMP2 car is kind of new to all of us on the iRacing service. So, how would you find that this car kind of performed, in comparison to the old HPD that we've all been used to enjoying?
This one's actually a lot surprisingly easier to drive. It feels much more stable in the rear end. You can chuck it about a lot more. It feels faster as well. I think we're doing a good second or so faster than it used to be. Well, I am personally, at least. So, but yeah, this is probably one of the best cars iRacing have put out, and I'm happy to get my first win in it on a track which I very much love. So.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Benjamin, so before we let you go, anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to Scott for having such an amazingly good, respectful race with me. And I hope to have many more with him. And also shout out to my teammate Toby as well, who for actually getting me to even race this race, because I didn't even realize this was happening. So I hopped in to get some practice for next week, and turned out to be the best sort of thing.
Wonderful. So that had been Benjamin Gregory, your outright race winner, LMP2 class winner, in fact. And we're now going to have Daniel Lee with us, and he is with my colleague Peter McKay.
Daniel Lee, congratulations on an excellent victory here in the GTE class in Petit Le Mans in your BMW M8. Now, we know you know the car well from your racing in ARL GT. How did it compare out there today?
It's brilliant. You know, in the ARL, you get in 20, 25, 40-minute races. You don't really get a chance to wear everything out on the car. This setup that I've been working on for a while feels brilliant. In the mid stages of the race, mid to late stages, when you're really sort of in your trance, it just felt like it was floating over the curb. So it rides them so well. The pace is amazing. So as a warm-up event for the ARL at Road Atlanta tomorrow, this was perfect. Just what we were looking for.
Oh, fantastic stuff. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that as well. And you were having a brilliant battle for most of the race with Nicholas Denneler, but unfortunately he hit technical issues. How is it battling with him in the new Corvette? And of course, we know you love this BMW M8. How do you find how it compares to the Corvette in wheel-to-wheel battle?
Interesting to see, because it's the first time I've encountered the Corvette on track so far. It seems to be fairly slippy in the straights. So not exactly easy to overtake, but I'm running even less wing than that. So pretty powerful stuff. If it was allowed to enter in the ARL at this point, it would be quite a challenger. But Nicholas himself, he was exactly on my pace. There was never a moment to rest. In the first half, I assumed I was going to be seeing him in the rearview mirror or seeing him just in front of me for the whole way. So it was disappointing when he, I think he had a bit of a crew chief malfunction at the pit stop, which may have meant that he had to pit again. So he probably knew his chances were dead at that point. So incredibly close racing and a great racer, a lot of respect there, but it couldn't go all the way, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a great pity. We were certainly enjoying it up in the booth. Well, but before we let you go, Daniel, all the very best of luck for the ARL race tomorrow. Are you going in for the full fat Petit Le Mans next weekend as well?
Sadly not. I think I've reached the full quota of what I can handle in terms of sessions and practice. I've got a lot of juggling to be doing. But one day when the IRL and WGTC are over and I'm looking at what I'm next going to tackle, I think some endurance races are in order, particularly as my teammate Dean Powell is so on the pace now. We could put a good team together for those. So, yeah, look out in the future.
Daytona, here we come. I can see it already. M Signs UK Daytona. Fantastic. Well, before we let you go, Daniel, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to live here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network?
Shout out to you guys for organising such good events and doing such a good job on the coverage. Shout out to msignsuk.com for the work they do. They do vehicle wraps and banners and events, all sorts of stuff. If it's printed in a large format, they do it. So shout out to them. They enjoy this stuff, and it's been a great journey with us as well. So thank you very much, and see you again.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for coming to join us, Daniel. Okay, so unfortunately, that is all we have time for here on the iRacing Esports Network and Apex Racing TV. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring this Petit Le Mans to you today. And of course, don't forget to tune in to the main race next weekend. It's going to be very exciting indeed. Huge thanks to my broadcast partner, Weihan, in the booth today, and also, most notably, our producer, Marco Barbanera, in Rome, pushing all the buttons, bringing all these wonderful graphics and images to you. You can find out more about all of the leagues available from Apex Racing on apexracingtv.com, and we look forward to welcoming you again here on Apex Racing TV. Thanks for watching, and take care.